Yeah. So, it's interesting, Adam, because you've now seen this sort of floodgate open for a lot of folks to come forward and want to speak to the committee. It's been about a year since the committee started its investigation, and a lot of those Trump officials that you recently met with or negotiations to meet with, were any of them previously reluctant to sit for an interview? And could you attribute their how should we say, recent willingness to come and cooperate with the committee as a sign that the committee is opening up some cans that they want to make sure they have a bit of control or at least some say in?
I think it's a good way to put it. I mean, I think it's that. I think it's now the committee is actually being taken seriously, because for the last, 9 or 10 months, it was really developing the investigation. It didn't have much of a public face. And so, it was written off by a lot of people. And now, obviously, it's made a difference. Obviously, this is quite important. I think you do have people now that say, I want to put my side in. Look, without going into any more details, there are people that have given us answers that maybe don't really square now, as we have had more people that came in and talked to us. And so we'll want to revisit with some of those folks, see if their memory clears up a little bit. And you look about, somebody like Cassidy Hutchinson, by the way, and I've got to tell you, Michael, the Republican caucus as well as I do. Cassidy Hutchinson, 25, 26 years old. Sarah Matthews, about the same age. Caroline Edwards, the Capitol Police officer, have more courage combined than probably every Republican man in the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate. And I think the story that's going to be written about this committee is the courage of young staffers, particularly young women, but young staffers to come forward and tell the truth is going to be like the basic equivalent of the whistleblowers for Nixon.
No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. It is amazing to see these young women stand on behalf of their country as opposed to what the elected officials in the Republican caucus are doing. We've also gotten word that Donald Trump is the subject of the DOJ's ongoing investigation. So what do you think about that and the DOJ? And will there or should they move forward with a criminal investigation of the former president at this point?
I think absolutely. Look, I think we have to understand as a country that no matter what happens, there's going to be blowback. This isn't our fault. It's not the DOJ's fault. It's one person's fault, Donald Trump, that put the country in a position where we have to make a decision. Are we going to prosecute or not? We being the Department of Justice. I think this. Look, we never want to get in a position where the new administration prosecutes the last administration ever, because that is, a banana republic. But that's very different when there's an attempted coup. And I think if we say, basically, look, bygones be bygones, the coup didn't succeed, and as long as the coup doesn't succeed, you can get away with it. I mean, I guarantee you somebody's going to try this again, and maybe even Trump himself if he runs again. This has to be pursued. Yes, it's going to be a bit unsteady for the country, but I think the biggest thing that would be unsteady for the country is saying the president's above the law, and covering up justice and obstructing justice is actually the way to go to be safe. We have to do this.
This has gotten also very personal for you, Adam. Your work with the committee has made you a target of threats from Trump loyalists and his supporters, the MAGA crazy crowd, and trying to impact and influence the investigation. But you've stood steady. You posted some of those messages on Twitter earlier this month. Let's take a listen to some of the messages that you've received recently.
Going to come protest in front of your house this weekend. You know who your family is, and we're going to get you.
Wrath of the Lord God Almighty come upon you, your health, your family, your home, your livelihood. And may I pray, if it be God's will, that you suffer.
These are vile threats to you and your family, man. I mean, these people, I cannot imagine what motivates you at this point to stay true to the cause and to move forward despite receiving this ignorant, vile, stupid responses from people in support of Donald Trump. How do you do it, man? How do you make this work every day for you?
Some of it, my friend, is anger, honestly. Some of it is, look, you're going to make that threat and think I'm going to back down. Look, you may You may somehow think that Donald Trump is a symbol of manliness. That's fine, whatever, if you believe that. But I got to tell you, if you think you can intimidate me, you can't. When I hear that woman, I mean, by the way, that woman talking about the Lord God, she truly believes. She truly believes that Jesus Christ, the guy I follow, wants her to pray against me and my family for telling the truth. She truly believes that. She's not being misled even by political leaders. Her pastor is failing her. So religious leaders are failing their flock at large numbers. That keeps me motivated to, look, I'm just going to tell the truth because I know this, my kid, that, by the way, even since we put that out, we've had dozens of threats against him. He's 6 months old, Michael. People that have threatened to kill him. Yeah. I mean, it's the depth of evil. I look at that and say, not only is that not going to intimidate me, I know that someday he's going to be proud to be a Kinzinger because his dad will have stood for something right. And I know that these people will be ashamed of what they said. It's just pure evil. That's all it is.
Well, his dad has stood for something right and is doing right on behalf of the country. We thank you, Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend.
You bet.
Turning overseas and the ongoing effort to get American basketball star Brittany Griner out of a Russian prison. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he had a, quote, frank and direct conversation with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov yesterday. Blinken says they discussed several topics regarding the war in Ukraine, including the release of Garner and Paul Whelan, another American being detained in Russia. NBC News has learned that the U.S. government proposed swapping Griner and Whelan for Victor Bout, a notorious Russian arms dealer imprisoned in the United States, whom Russia has been trying to get released for years now. NBC News has also learned that Russia responded to that offer by demanding the release of a convicted murderer imprisoned in Germany. A U.S. official says this apparent counterproposal shows the Russians are, quote, not serious. After the break, something deadly serious, the situation in Ukraine, especially as it relates to children.